Netflix has always been on the cutting edge of content today, though when Netflix comes out with a new teen show, it really feels like they could have done so much better. And during these past few years, me and my dislike for Netflix has only been getting higher and higher. Just like those kids in the back of the class that you used to know from middle school but always seemed a little bit distant, and you wanted to say something to the teacher but you didn't want to get them in more trouble than they already are in the school, but you also don't want to be called a snitch by the whole class just in case you wanted to buy some later on in high school. Yeah, that kind of high. After I watched this one show makes me want to swan dive off my roof. This one show where the Netflix writers are practically copy and pasting plot lines. It made me realize, Netflix, it's time to stop, my dude. So I'm going to explain not only why I hate this type of show so much, but also why Netflix contradicts itself by making these types of teen shows. To elaborate on this, I feel Netflix has been going downhill since they hard-shoved things like Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and other Disney shows and movies. Along this time, they transitioned from shows and movies across all TV networks to just Disney. Their variety just went way down. And then, their notorious originals started being produced. Not a bad concept. Why can't Netflix make their own shows and movies? But when Netflix was first starting out, Netflix originals were regarded by many users as pretty meh or not so good. Then, everything changed when Stranger Things first attacked. Stranger Things was Netflix's big break. It proved that Netflix originals could compete with shows on TV. It appealed to both adults for nostalgia, and it appealed to kids because for once the main characters were like them. Well, the Netflix shareholders picked up on how successful Stranger Things is, and realized that angsty teens like watching other angsty teens. Now all these teen live-action Netflix shows are being more short marathon shows to watch in 1 or 2 days, with longer episodes that focus on teens growing up. But the kids that Netflix wants to capture in these shows have such a level of ironic joking in their bloodstream, as well as a disgust for anything business related, so Netflix wants to copy these kids in order to get them to watch their shows, but that contradicts what their demographic stands for. So what's the solution? Now these shows made for the teenage demographic have to have some sort of edgy character to show off that they are some sort of edgy company, even though they are exactly like the cash grab company that they want to distance themselves from by doing this. Now don't get me wrong, there are some good parts about the new Netflix teen shows. The End of the World is one of Netflix's best shows, and even though Daybreak was as heavy pandering as it gets, there were still some good parts. So after that long backstory, we can finally talk about I'm Not Okay With This.
Dear Diary, go fuck yourself.
Everything about this show, from the title to the plot, screams,
how do you do, fellow kids? What?
So from one angsty teenager to another, I'm going to explain why I'm Not Okay With This did not appeal to me in any way and was one of the worst things I've ever seen. Thanks, Netflix. Sydney is just your normal teenage girl struggling with relationships, the prom, bullying, detention. You would think with a show with such a focus on being different, you would think the show would be different.
I'm not special. Yippee.
Sydney has the really unique ability of being psychic. Wow. They make it seem like the superpowers are the coolest thing about the show, but it honestly takes a backseat in most of the show for the drama.
Anyway, my dad died last spring.
Blank best friend character, frickin' Dina, who she is in love with by the way, has a popular boyfriend, Brad, that she absolutely frickin' hates because he takes away from spending time with her and Dina. With her new frickin' feelings about her father and angry outbursts, Sydney is experiencing psychic abilities, and the only one who knows about it is this kid frickin' Stan, who we first suppose is the love interest. But the way they write him, you might as well call him Flat Stanley. You know, the children's book character, Flat Stanley. He could mail himself cause he's flat as paper. He had some fun adventures. Only me, guys. Flat Stanley? No? Flat Stanley lives next to Sydney and finally makes moves to be friends, and more as Flat Stanley wants. Instead of Sydney telling him she isn't interested, Sydney constantly leads on Flat Stanley.
Hey, I need your car. What if I actually like Stan?
Did you think we were together?
Using him for her own gain in almost all of the show. I don't know why they put this forced relationship in. Flat Stanley didn't even need to be in the show. If they really wanted Sydney to be a freak character, wouldn't it make more sense to show her dealing with her emotions on her own for most of the show? I don't get it. Except for Sydney and her mom, none of these characters have any flaws. I'm struggling to think of anything about these characters besides friend, boy, bad guy. This show is so one-dimensional. Flat Stanley just blindly follows Sydney.
No, wait. It's fine?
Dina's just a plot device for Sydney to feel bad. Even Brad, the guy we are supposed to hate the most, doesn't even show that many flaws. If anything, I feel bad for him more than Sydney. Like, yeah, sure, he is the typical sexist jock, but honestly, the things that Sydney does to him is way worse.
Shut up!
Sydney doesn't work as a character. Netflix was so focused on making her relatable and rude that they forgot to give her any redeeming qualities, or any personality to any of the other characters. Why wouldn't the writers just have her hate Brad in private and be happy for Dina when they are together?
He asked me to homecoming.
Wait, and you accepted?
Yeah, of course I said yes.
Bruh.
Dina doesn't even get mad at Sydney for being so judgmental. Like, stand up for yourself, Dina, jeez. However, there is one instance that I think shows how much of a bad character Sydney is. The show makes a big deal out of her being a good sister, and they make it seem like that's her one redeeming quality. They also point out early on that Sydney's brother Liam is going to be next in line to get bullied at school. When face to face with Liam's bully, will Sydney control her temper and tell Liam to do something responsible?
Bet you feel like a badass, huh?
Kinda.
Well, let me tell you something. One day, it's all gonna go downhill, buddy. Your life will be so pathetic you'll actually attend your high school reunions, because you know what? Nothing else is ever gonna happen for you in your entire life.
She gets mad at this literal small 12-year-old child for calling her a freak, and then obviously the bully beats up Liam. Of course Liam gets mad at her for specifically telling her not to deal with the situation. It's okay though, guys, she makes up for it by making him breakfast.
Also, made you lunch.
Yeah, this makes up for it. Leaving him with a black eye, it's not that bad, because he found out that he could stand up for himself on his own. What? Why didn't Sydney show him to do that in the first place? Why was this even in the show? Sydney didn't learn anything except that getting her brother beat up worked out in the end. It just makes us like Liam more for standing up for himself, but Liam isn't even a main character. This side plot doesn't even feed back into the main one. Oh, but thanks for the breakfast, Sydney.
Can I just use my phone?
Setting is a huge problem with these types of originals. The characters act and do things that you would think would be in the modern day, but it looks like it's in the 50s. It's like the writers were forced to write in the 50s, but never bothered to look up anything about the decade, and just copied the high school feel. Like, what is she even wearing? Hey, the Zigzag 90s company called. They want their whole outfit back. And what is Sydney even wearing? Did she go to the Goodwill? Like, what? What is this? Who wears this in 2020? Oh my god. Not only this, but everything feels so one note. Seriously, they never bothered giving more than one purpose for characters. I'm talking about I'm not okay with this, but you can honestly switch out any of these teen shows. It almost gives them a smokescreen, since if they said it exactly in modern day, their idea of teenagers could be totally wrong. But if they put the show in a gray time period, it makes the audience feel nostalgic while not being directly related to them, but still feeling like they could be. Why wouldn't Netflix spend more time on writing instead of just seeing what sticks to the wall? Especially when everything you are throwing at the wall is the exact same object, just with a different coat of paint. It's gonna fall to the floor the exact same way. Yeah, that's what I think about these Netflix teen shows, and I'm not okay with this. I don't mind them using character tropes, but if you're gonna hype up your show as being so different, you have to at least make different character types, or change what those character tropes mean. I wish Netflix wouldn't make these shows every 2 months the exact same way, but it's probably pretty profitable for them. I don't know, I'm gonna hurl myself towards Earth now.